Is that a violation, labor violation?
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Acting Secretary, welcome. Part of your job, Madam Acting Secretary, is to protect and support employees, is it not?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that we should protect, do you believe passionately that we should protect and support our employees?
I am passionate about that, sir, yes.
Okay. Do you believe that we should passionately protect and support our employees at the FDIC?
I do believe that all employees should be entitled to fair pay and come home healthy and safe.
Including the FDIC?
Yes.
Okay. Have you read the recent outside report, 234 pages, about the creepy old men at the FDIC?
I have not seen that, Senator.
Have you heard about it?
I have not.
Are you curious about it?
Yes, I am, sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, the report, the people who conducted the report, Madam Acting Secretary, and I'm surprised you haven't followed it, asked employees at the agency to phone in complaints. There's 6,000 employees, 500, almost 1 out of 10 employees phoned in complaints. Many of them were sexual complaints, sexual discrimination complaints. One young woman said, my supervisor continuously sends me text messages with photographs of his penis. Is that a labor violation?
I mean, it's horrible.
Well, another employee, an Hispanic employee, said my supervisor required me to recite the Pledge of Allegiance because he said I had to prove I'm an American. Is that a labor violation?
I think, Senator, everything that you're saying is not acceptable in the workplace.
Okay.
The technical question about labor violation is, I know they fall under various statutes, but yes.
One young woman said, my supervisor sent me a text message saying, quote, "Get naked, bitch." Is that a violation, labor violation?
I think it's unacceptable workplace behavior, certainly.
It's pretty bad. One young woman said, my supervisor regularly commented on my breasts and my legs and about his sex life. Is that a labor violation?
I think it's unacceptable behavior.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, isn't it? One young woman sent in a complaint and said, one of my supervisors asked me the following question, quote, "Does your husband eat you?" Close quote. Is that a labor violation?
I mean, it's unacceptable behavior. It's disgusting.
Well, what do you plan on doing about it? Don't you think that that all of the senior management at the FDIC should resign and be prosecuted?
So, Senator, I don't know if a complaint was formally made to the EEOC. That is the federal agency that oversees sexual
complaint. You're the
Okay.
labor secretary, and I know from your behavior you believe in protecting employees. Now, this is as egregious as I've ever seen, and I suspect you've ever seen. And I thought we'd already decided that this is no country for creepy old men. I'm asking you what you're planning. Are you going to call for Martin Gruenberg, who runs the place, to resign? He's been there since 2005, and one or two things are going on. If he says he didn't know about it, he's like a rock, only dumber. Or he condoned this behavior. For the Biden administration, Does Me Too apply except at the FDIC? Is that what you're saying?
No, Senator. I mean, I have seen some pretty horrible things. I mean, we see human trafficking and people forced to work in unconscionable conditions.
Yes, ma'am, but what are you going to do about the FDIC?
So,
and how are you going to protect those employees?
Well, they definitely deserve protection. This is where the Department of Labor's authority over the Fair Labor Standards Act, the OSH Act, and other things, the sexual harassment claims that you were talking about fall under a different federal agency. And
so you're just going to ignore it?
No, I mean, but I think that it's important for agencies to operate under the authority that they've been given by Congress.
Don't you
One
think
reason
you
I
have
think
a
I didn't
moral
know.
imperative to ask Mr. Grunberg to resign, to quit?
I would say this, Senator. I would say, I think you said that a complaint had been made. I'm assuming it was made to the proper federal agency. I trust that our sister
Not yet,
agencies.
but they're coming. I'm just asking you what you're planning on doing, if anything. It doesn't sound to me like you're planning on doing anything to help these young female employees.
Well, now that you've brought it to my attention, I'm happy to make sure that the EOC is aware that there is a case like this.
But you're not going to do anything about it as Labor Secretary.
Well, let me say this, Senator. I know that the people of America need a very strong Department of Labor to protect working people across this country. Our authority to investigate, to cite, to end bad labor practices are bound by the authority that's given by you to me. These investigations occur at another agency.
You're not going to do anything, are you?
Oh, I just said I'm happy to reach out to them to make sure they're aware of it, and if they need any support that I'm able to give.
Your power to help those employees.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. We're going to begin a second round of questions. I do understand some members who were here earlier are trying to return for their opportunity to do their first round. For far too long, many Americans were denied health coverage for life-saving mental health services. I was proud to support bipartisan legislation that requires private health insurance companies to cover mental health and substance use disorder, just like they cover physical health. The Department of Labor plays a critical oversight role in securing parity compliance in employment-based health plans covering an estimated 131 million plan participants. Supplemental appropriations Congress provided to help implement this legislation will be exhausted by the end of the year. These funds have helped the department address parity violations, hold companies accountable, and facilitate access to treatment. Acting Secretary Sue, how would additional resources requested in this budget help the department's Employee Benefits Security Administration improve access to substance use disorder treatments that Wisconsinites and communities across the United States need to help overcome the crisis that claimed more than 100,000 American lives in the year 2022?
Chairwoman Baldwin, thank you so much for your leadership on this issue. Today is actually National Children's Mental Health Awareness Day, and this month is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. And at the Department of Labor, we play a very important role on making sure that individuals who need mental health services, substance use disorder treatment, actually get the coverage from the insurance company that they're supposed to get. Our EBSA that does this enforcement, our Employee Benefit Security Administration, the budget request there is an increase of $14.6 million. Again, in order to stay under the Fiscal Responsibility Act cap that was there, and in order to continue to do enforcement, as you mentioned, in a field that is so important, but in which the funding that was given is about to sunset. I just want to share a few examples of the kinds of enforcement that we do here. We have, I've spoken to several parents whose children needed some kind of mental health treatment, and they were denied coverage for it. And so sometimes it means that a family will simply forego the treatment, often with devastating results. Sometimes families will do everything they can, including get a second mortgage on their home, right? Go into great debt in order to pay what is needed. We had a case in which a child needed inpatient mental health care. The family took out a second mortgage for it and ended up paying over $200,000 out of pocket. Because of the Department of Labor's intervention, we got that amount covered by insurance, which, the families will tell us that it's basically life-saving work. We have benefits advisors who answer the phone when somebody is being denied coverage, and sometimes that intervention will result in immediate change. This is life-saving work. And oftentimes, the impact of one enforcement effort has ripple effects, because once the insurance company recognizes what they're supposed to do in that one instance in which we got involved, they will change the way that they approach future requests for coverage. And then that has, each of our investigations is amplified in terms of its impact. And so I can't overstate the importance of the work of EBSA, especially in this moment where we are seeing, 1 in 5 adults report a mental health issue a year. And for young people, I don't even know if the data is fully available. So I can't overstate the importance of building up EBSA in order to continue this work.
Thank you. Give her a moment to get adjusted, and then I will recognize Senator Britt.
Thank you very much. Just got finished with banking and headed down, so thank you. I appreciate it. Acting Secretary Sue, thank you for being here today. I wanted to begin by expressing my concern about the length of time the Biden administration has allowed the Department of Labor to operate without a Senate-confirmed secretary at the helm. As you were aware, your nomination to be the Secretary of Labor is opposed in a bipartisan majority of the Senate, and you will not be confirmed to this position during this Congress. Despite that reality and repeated requests to the President to put forth a nominee who can receive adequate support to be confirmed, the Biden administration has instead left you in place as acting secretary on an indefinite basis with no current plans to put forth another nominee for Secretary of Labor. You've also been listed on the White House website as a member of the cabinet, quote, in order of succession to the presidency, signaling that despite having never been elected to any office nor confirmed by the Senate to any cabinet level position, the White House believes that you are eligible to assume the presidency pursuant to the Presidential Succession Act of 1974. In October, I led a letter to President Biden along with 29 of my colleagues, urging that the White House clarify its position on this very issue. I've yet to receive a response to that letter, and so I want to raise that question with you today. Do you believe that if the need were to arise, that you are currently eligible to assume the presidency under the Presidential Succession Act of 1974?
Senator, it is the honor of a lifetime to have been nominated by the president to serve in his cabinet.
Absolutely. And do you believe that you are in the line of presidential succession?
So prior to being nominated, I was confirmed as the Deputy Secretary of Labor in 2021. And then when my predecessor left, I became the acting secretary through the normal...
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware. My question is, do you believe that you should be in the presidential line of succession? It's just a yes or a no.
I mean, Senator, I put it this way. I serve at the pleasure of the president. I appreciate his confidence in me. We've spent some time here today talking about the work of the department and the important ways that we are...
Yes, this is my question is specifically about the presidential line of succession. Do you believe, yes or no, that you should be in that, having not been confirmed to this position by the United States Senate? So just, yes, you believe you should be able to succeed in the presidential line of succession if that were ever to happen, or no, you believe you are not actually in that line of succession?
Can I say two things about that, Senator? The first is that
Well, you know
The
what?
question
Yeah, I actually have a lot of questions I want to get to on this, but I thought that would be a really easy yes or no, and to me it's no. You haven't been confirmed, and therefore should not be in the line of succession. I mean, this is a big deal, and I think that's a simple answer, and unfortunately I didn't get that from you. Like many other of my colleagues, I've been very concerned about a number of rules that have been issued by the Department of Labor during your tenure, starting with the new overtime rule, and I know we've discussed that a bit today. The new rule increases the minimum salary threshold for the executive, administrative, or professional overtime exemption by 65% from the 2019 rule, and increases the minimum salary threshold for a highly compensated employee overtime exemption by 41% from the 2019 rule. I've heard from numerous stakeholders in Alabama about the huge detrimental impact that this rule will have on them. As an example, many of Alabama's small colleges and universities, which include HBCUs. We have more HBCUs in Alabama than any other place in the nation. And as I hear from them about dealing with this, it is going to have significant ramifications. My office has spoken to schools that don't have large budgets or endowments, but are facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional costs for the upcoming academic year, having to implement this rule and reevaluate salaries across the board due to this rule's provisions. At the same time, those schools are unable to lock down their incoming freshman classes or fully make informed decisions and budgetary choices about the upcoming academic year. And if you look at that, this rule is obviously having a huge impact in addition to all of those things in small businesses in Alabama. And to me, small businesses are the heartbeat of this country. They're what make main streets go. They're what allow people to achieve the American dream. And given these realities, do you, at the very least, envision the department granting additional flexibility with respect to the timing of this rule's implementation across the country?
So, Senator, I agree with what you said about the importance of small businesses in our economy. There's no question about that. And we engage with small businesses in all of our rulemaking, but also in our overtime rule. In terms of the timing, actually—
And they're supportive of that?
We got comments on all sides. We got, I think I said this, over 33,000 comments on overtime. I believe that's the right number for that particular rule. And we do hear from small businesses who rely on the Department of Labor to create a level playing field on which they can compete, especially in a moment where they need to recruit and retain, keep workers by making sure that their working conditions are competitive. But let me just address the timing, because that is one of the things, and the ranking member and I already talked about this some, is we heard comments about the need for some time to come into compliance. So our overtime rule goes into effect in 2 phases. The first is on July 1st. It will go up, it's a bump based on the current methodology, not the new methodology, but the current rule multiplied by current wage levels. The other bump, the bump of the 35th percentile in the new rule, is going to go into effect on January 1st of 2025.
I hope you'll take these things into consideration, and I am obviously out of time, but I heard my colleague from New Hampshire mention there is a big cost of living difference, as she mentioned, from in New Hampshire and Boston. When you look at the low cost of living in Alabama, there is a detrimental effect that occurs, and I hope that you will take all of those things into account. So thank you very much for your time today.
If I could just also say, the way our formula works does take that into account, and I'm happy to follow up if you want to hear more about that.
Thank you, Senator Britt. Senator Capito.
Thank you. Acting Secretary, I want to ask about ESG because I mentioned that in my opening statement. So in 2022, the Employee Benefits Security Administration issued a final rule under ERISA that allows plan fiduciaries to consider climate change, environmental, social, and governance factors when making investment decisions. What brought that decision forward? And was that a requirement from the president to have an all throughout every department consideration of climate change? Because as we look at, say, the Social Security Trust Fund, which a lot of people are going to be relying on for retirement, and also their retirement plans, in my view, the best way to keep our retirees as they move into their senior years in the best possible position is to have the maximum financial benefit accrue to their plans, regardless of, I could see if things were illegal, but if you're talking about a natural gas company or a coal company or somebody else who's really maximizing profits, this rule would, if that fiduciary takes this under consideration, would eliminate that as a possibility.
So, Ranking Member, I very much appreciate both the question and the way in which you asked it, because I agree, and of course, it's best for retirees for their investments to give them the maximum financial benefit.
Right.
All of our work, our enforcement work, as well as our rulemaking is about that. This particular rule is consistent with that in that it does not mandate, but it does allow an investor to take into account ESG factors, especially because, and I was just in a meeting about this with many investors who actually make these decisions, sometimes when those factors, labor principles, right, environmental, valuing environmental outcomes, those factors actually make an investment more profitable. And so what our rule did, the prior administration took away the ability to consider those factors, said that you can't look at them. Our rule restores the ability for someone who's making those decisions to look at all of the factors that will help them to decide what is going to be best for the actual retiree.
In my opinion, this really politicizes a really important part of our financial fabric in this country. And I think that the pressures, you didn't answer the question as to whether the pressure to move forward with this rule came from the White House or from the financial institutions. Are you aware that there are a lot of ESG funds that have actually shuttered, closed down, because they're not generating the profits that they need? So who made the decision to move forward on this? Was this a decision you made or the former head of labor, or was it made in the White House?
Well, so Ranking Member, if I could just say again, just to respond
answer
to
that.
The politicization occurred in the prior administration when it said you cannot consider them. The point about being able to consider all factors is something that we heard from those people, financial advisors, those making those decisions, that they wanted to be able to consider all factors, but because of the prior administration's rule, they were afraid to do that, even when it would be in the best interest of the accounts, in which it would result in the maximum investment return. So our rule was really about more flexibility. In terms of who made the decision, again, we went through the process for rulemaking that we always go through. We are thoughtful, we are judicious, we take comments, we listen to them, we respond to them, and then we produce something that we believe is in the best interests of, in this case, not just the account holders, but also those who asked for more flexibility in their decision making.
Thank you.
Thank you.